Back on HQ Spotlight, many wondering how Ryan Day can move forward as head coach of the Buckeyes after a fourth straight loss to Michigan, another year without a Big Ten championship game berth. With the calendar and the transfer portal, teams making a push to make changes at the coaching position ASAP, but the Buckeyes are likely going to be in the CFP, so it's a really fascinating position to be in. And with more on that, we want to bring in Chris Hummer and Matt Zenitz, who cover the coaching carousel for us in 24/7 Sports. Matt, I'll let you start on this. What kind of predicament is this for Ohio State with Ryan Day?
Well, first of all, it's obviously less than ideal to be the first Ohio State head coach in 33 years to have a four-game losing streak against Michigan. That said, fortunately for Ryan, fortunately for Ohio State, this does not knock them out of the playoffs. They get a chance to right the ship now, and it becomes important for Ryan, even more so now, to make a deep run at the very least in the playoffs. And fortunately for Ohio State, they do have the amount of talent that they do that puts them in position where even coming off of that loss to Michigan, they do still have the capability to make a deep run and compete for a national championship.
Yeah, I agree with what Matt said. I think Ryan Day's situation is largely going to be dependent on what happens over the next couple of weeks. I think a lot of us probably had Ohio State as a national title favorite going into the year, and there's no reason to believe Ohio State can't still win a national championship. They might get another shot at Oregon. Michigan, it's not going to be in their way. You can't go 0-5 against Michigan in the playoffs this year because they're not going to make it. So Ryan Day has some ability to change the hearts and minds of Buckeyes fans. He is, after all, 66-10 as their head coach. Like, he has been a successful coach by any measure except for winning a national championship. But at the same time, that is the standard at Ohio State. And I think there are a lot of restless people in Columbus. It's never a good sign when your AD is giving you a vote of confidence day after a loss.
And if they don't win the national championship, I mean, it's going to be an epic failure of a season again for him. That's how Buckeyes fans will look at it. And when you look at the schedule and the transfer portal and all that, I mean, they could be playing until January 20th. Is there a kind of a drop-dead period where they need to, if he's still coaching, if they're still in it, they just need to move forward with him, Chris?
I think if you're in the mix to win a national championship, you have a hard time firing somebody, right? Like, you can't be in the semis and looking for another coach.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, if they make the national championship game and they lose it, it's January 20th. Is that too late to move on to somebody else this new day and age?
I think we've seen in college football it's never too late. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Nick Saban changed jobs after the portal closed last year, and Alabama was able to pivot. But I think with a job like Ohio State, if Ohio State came open, it doesn't matter the date on the calendar. It would be of interest to almost every sitting head coach in the country and many in NFL circles as well. Like, it's arguably the best job in the country. But if Ryan Day makes a national championship and you fall just short, like, I don't think that's a failure. Yeah, 3 losses would sting, but like, part of the deal in football is just getting there and having a chance. Like, the San Francisco 49ers have been one of the best teams in the league the last couple of years. And I'm sure teams would think they've been a failure, but they've gotten there, which is really hard to do. And I think if Ryan Day gets there, you have a hard time moving on. But maybe I'm just looking at that with neutral glasses as opposed to the scarlet and gold.
Not an Ohio State fan, yeah. Several openings at power schools already: North Carolina, West Virginia, UCF. Bobby Petrino's name is being thrown around, Matt, but not for a power job at this point. Where is he a candidate?
That's one of the more interesting openings right now, and that's at the group of 5 level with Charlotte. So Charlotte could be one of the next jobs to pop and make a hire. Expect something to happen in the coming days, and it's down to a final group of people, final group of coaches in the running for that job that includes, first of all, Bobby Petrino, Tony Gibson, the defense coordinator at NC State, and then Western Carolina head coach Kerwin Bell. But Bobby has been a popular name coming up on my end during the course of the last couple of days. I believe it's the same thing for Chris, just based on conversations he's had. But should have clarity on this at some point in the next couple of days, although definitely we will emphasize that there's a real possibility that this could end with Bobby Petrino getting another opportunity to be a head coach.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some confidence around Bobby Petrino that he has a real shot at this job. And I think some of us think of the Bobby Petrino of a decade ago coming out of his situation at Arkansas, but this is somebody who's been a successful head coach in the time since. He had a nice run at Missouri State before going to Texas A&M and then going to Arkansas this year, where I think those around the program have been very pleased with the way that he has run the offense there and helped turn around, in some ways, Sam Pittman's tenure. And I think given his success as a head coach, it's understandable why Charlotte would be taking a long look there. And as Matt said, there are others in this mix. But I think Bobby Petrino clearly is a name that resonates. And if Charlotte went that way, like it would be I think a lot of people in the industry would look at that hire with a nod of approval, given what Bobby Petrino's kind of proven in his career.
There are names that resonate, and that's a direction that a lot of schools in Charlotte's position will go. FAU has done that the last 2 hires, Willie Taggart, Tom Herman. Neither one of them worked. Matt, are they going to go in a different direction this cycle?
So from the beginning of this process, it's been clear that FAU has been prioritizing up-and-coming coaches with offensive background, and one of the most popular names coming up on my end and on Chris's end right now has been Brian Brom, who obviously had a lot of success as a player and now played part of that staff at Louisville and has continued to establish himself as a rising star in the coaching world. And then there have been some other guys that fall in that category, being up-and-coming offensive minds, up-and-coming offensive coaches to go along with Brian that have been getting a look throughout the course of this process. There have been coaches like Jaywan Sider at Penn State that have interviewed. Zach Kitley from Texas Tech, the OC there, has been involved. Garen Justice at SMU. But in recent days, Brian has probably been the most popular name.
Mentioned West Virginia is open. Neil Brown was able to win 5-6 games a season, but really only had that 1 year last year where he won anything more than that. So they moved on from him. Didn't work in the Big 12 for Neil Brown. He was great in the Sun Belt at Troy. 10 games he won in 3 consecutive seasons. Chris, what kind of commodity might he be in the group of 5?
I think Neil Brown, if he chooses to re-enter the market, and that's an if, but I think there is some around Neil Brown's circle that think he might choose to dive back in right away. But he's going to be very popular. You mentioned his success at Troy, and frankly, I know it didn't go maybe the way West Virginia had hoped, but he's been pretty successful at West Virginia too. Hasn't really competed for conference championships, but that's a tougher job in the Big 12, even in the new look Big 12. And for somebody who's been on the perpetual hot seat for 2 years straight, I think he had a successful run. So if Neil Brown did decide to explore his options again, given his success at Troy in the past, his connections, he's somebody that's really uniformly well-liked in the coaching community as well. I think Neil Brown would have a pretty robust market if he chose to go that direction.
Yeah, and if you just look at some of the current openings right now, you have Tulsa, you have UMass, you have App State that just opened today, schools that it would make a lot of sense from their standpoint for Neil to be a consideration. There are people around the coaching world that think that administration at those places could give some level of consideration to Neil as a possibility.
Matt Zenitz and Chris Hummer, they have co-authored an article right now. It's 247sports.com on all of the coaching news swirling right now in college football with a bunch of teams, bunch of big programs already moving forward and changing head coaches. 247 Sports, stay up to date with all the college sports news, recruiting, transfers, and more. 247sports.com.
Chris, did you know the Broncos have had 15 straight quarters without a giveaway?
No, I didn't know that.
These are the stats you need to know if you're going to bet on the game,
Oh.
which we're going to do next.
Okay.
We'll try to make some money.
Let's do it.